everybody. And we're live.
All right, excellent. Good evening, everybody. So we just started the recording. My name's Colin McCrone, and so I'm sort of, I guess, filling in perhaps, and so it's brought here for Caesar, who is, I believe, out of town today.
Good for him.
Exactly. And then so I'm the warm up act too, just to talk, go through some like learning type things, and I'll be focusing on just practical Dynamo applications inside of Revit. So no swoopy geometry at all today, just sort of data stuff and useful parts of the Revit workflow. And then on the phone as well is, if Adam is unmuted here, our special extra special guest presenter is Adam Sheather. And Adam, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey, there you go. Hi, I'm Adam Sheather. I'm a BIM manager for a developer, owner, architect, contractor, all in one, based in Asia. We do work globally, about 50 billion USD worth in assets. So I manage all the groups from concept through to handover from a technical point of view.
Thank you very much, Adam, for joining us today too. So where are you right now? Are you in Brisbane?
No, I'm in Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur,
okay. Work just started 8 minutes ago, so everyone's just come in to work right now.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'll get ready. Oh, I should also mention too that Adam is a member of the Bad Monkeys, the famous Dynamo power user group, self-organizing. That's about a year old or so now. We find them on the forums all the time. I'll get right in. So I'm going to try and only take about a half an hour for this. I really wanted to go through just a couple things, and I thought the idea behind the learning part is to show some workflows and sort of talk through it a little bit. And I'll certainly provide these files. Just send me an email, and I'll send you all the stuff that I made here. I'm going to go over 4 things. One is this is actually a question that somebody asked me today, and I thought it was a great question. Is if you want to do something with elements and just sort of like analyze what's going on inside of your model. This is an example of just a short little workflow to count basically the instances of different family types of a category and just write it to Excel. So you can see of the different family types, which are families and family types, which are placed in your file, which are not, how many of them are there. So this is just the kind of thing that it's maybe easier to do with Dynamo than it would be to, say, for example, write something else to do it. The next one I'll talk about is I posed this challenge a while ago to people on the Dynamo team and some users too, is just finding furniture in rooms. And so the idea is that, if you have it, you can make a room schedule and you can figure out, it's a little cumbersome, but you can figure out which pieces of furniture are in which rooms. But you might actually just do this in a Dynamo script too, so that you could append that information to the the piece of furniture itself. So this is I'm going to go through this example. So you can add that data back in this way. The fun part about the challenge is that of the 3 or 4 people who ended up finding a solution, all of us found a completely different way of solving this problem. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'll show you the one I thought was one of the easier ones. Then I'll show just a workflow to renumber rooms. And so this is really inspired by a blog post from William Wong at Case from, I want to say it was back in March of this year. And so this is a sort of a simpler version of that. It's probably not as robust as it might be in some cases, but it's, I think, useful to talk about the logic through this. And the idea is that you could draw a model line and then have Dynamo basically walk along the line and renumber the rooms starting with whatever number you specify. So I'll go over that. And then the last one is just sort of a thing, if you want to say check or sign off on all your sheets in your view, you can do it all at once instead of doing it sheet by sheet. So there's a couple different workflows that I'll go through. So the first one, looking at something, I have 2 projects that are open, and I just opened Dynamo. These are, I'm sure you recognize these. These are the sample projects that install with Revit. And so the advanced one on the left and the simple one on the right. On this one on the left, I think that I'll use the Entourage example because it's relatively simple. There are 2 Entourage families that are loaded, and there are several types of each. So if you look at under here, what's available, I can spell. Here are the things that are available. And so the idea would be to write a Dynamo script to be able to count how many instances of these different types are available, and then write that to Excel. So I've gotten sort of most of the way here. I've opened Dynamo from that file, and I'm picking a category. And then this is a great node from Clockwork, which is Andreas Diekmann's package that just basically probably is one of the best ways to select all the different elements in a category. So what this is going to do is this is the category is entourage, and this is actually giving you all the family types that are available. So these are not elements themselves, but this is a list of all of the types and all of the that exist. Then what I've done is just taken this category name. I did quite a bit of setup in this case because it's some more crazy, just distinguishing between types and instances, and then families and categories and that kind of thing. I just sort of laid it out first. But this is just taking that that word entourage and basically repeating it for the number of elements that exist. So that way, every single each of these family types has its own has a version of the category name. And then the family name, so next step down. So of the different types that are available, there are 4 that are male, and then something like 6 that are female. And then the type name. So these are Dwayne, Alex. These are males. Yin Yin, Florence are females. And then finally, how many of them are there? And so in this case, the magic was just to take. Let me use a watch node here. You can select once you have each of these types available. So these are all the types that are available in the Revit project of anything that is of that category of entourage, and then you can select and see with all elements of family type how many of there. So you can see there's 1 Alex, there's 1 Jay, and there's 1 Florence, and we'll change this in the future here once we have this set up. But then in order to count these things, what we can do is instead of asking for, so we'll take this list here, and you can do list.count. And if I did this, then you'll see that what you actually get is the number of things in this list right here, which includes some, in some places there are no, like for instance, this first guy, Dwayne's, there are no Dwayne's, it's an empty list, but there's 1 Alex. So this is why when counting this, at least using it this way, then I'll have the total number of family types. That's not what I want. I want how many items exist for each type, and the syntax for that is list.map. So I want to not count the whole thing, but I want to count each thing. So in that case, I can see that there is 1 Alex, and then down here 1 Florence type thing. So that was the only magic there. The rest of this, once that's really sort of set up, is to write this to an Excel file. So I'll just do that sort of quickly. And so I want to do list.create. By the way, I'm hitting the right mouse button to get that. You can search either in the left, in the library on the left, or you can search on the right here. And so I'm going to add these things in order to a new list, basically collect all these different individual lists. And what you get is basically all these things stacked together. The Excel.write node for Dynamo writes a row at a time as opposed to a column at a time, and these are basically columns of information. So I'm going to sort of flip the way that this is organized with something called list.transpose. If you're familiar with the Grasshopper version of this, it's flip matrix, and if you look for flip matrix, you'll find this too.
And transpose is what it's called in Excel.
That's right. That's right. So this transpose is actually this mathematical term. It's the matrix theory term. It's also exactly what it's called in Excel. That's right. And see what this did is now each of these individual lists is basically a row of the Excel file. So you can see that this one thing, entourage, the family is M_RPC male. The type is Dwayne, and there are 0 of them, whereas there is 1 Alex, that kind of thing. Once you have something like this, you can also do something like add a title row to this. So I'm going to add a title row by saying first is category, and if you use double quotes in a code block, you get basically you get a string, like a word, as opposed to a variable. Next was family, and then type, and then the last one was count. And the curly braces here just make a list, basically. So I just made a list. Instead of 4 individual things, I had one big thing. And so what I'm going to do is add this to that data I'm going to write to Excel. So list and then add item to the front.
So your code block was just to create the headers to the report.
You got it. So now when you put this together, this guy was added to the front of this list. So now the first row says category, family, type, count. Above, so the first row of the Excel file will be human readable, so I can tell what this is. And then the last thing is really just to write all this stuff to Excel. So you can see what that takes. You can just search for Excel, write to file. So this is the data that we're going to write. And the file path I set way back here is kind of an input, and I'm just going to put it right on my desktop. I'm just going to call it test, say. And this is asking for a few other pieces of information, such as the sheet name, the start row and start column. So I'll just put that in, like, say, sheet 1. And then the start row and start column is going to be 0. And finally, that last bit, asking whether to overwrite the spreadsheet, is to basically asking you whether you want to have the spreadsheet totally overwritten with what the new data that you're giving it, or if you only want to overwrite a part of it. So we'll overwrite the whole thing. So send.
So quick question for you: why would the row be 0 instead of 1?
Thank you. So why the row is 0. So in Excel, when you look at the first cell, it's A1, and that's actually a little strange to talk about in terms of Dynamo, because of course most things are 0 indexed, or everything's 0 indexed. So because Dynamo is a programming language, and that's true of almost all programming languages, save for things like Fortran. So the first item starts with 0. So to keep that, it's really a convention that we decided to go with. So A1 equals 0, 0. And that should say that in the tooltip too. But then you have something like, you have all your entourage, and you can see how many of them there are here. So once you do this is a live link. So if I just put this sort of off to the side here, and if I have, as long as I have Dynamo running, and
Add some Dwaynes.
I need another. Yeah, let's add some Dwaynes. Where's Dwayne? Here he is. So zoom in here and add some Dwaynes. And Dynamo does not run while Revit is in the middle of something else. So it's not going to run until I hit escape and I'm out of this process. As soon as I hit escape, then you see that the Dynamo saw that there was a change. I didn't touch anything other than hit escape. Dynamo saw that there was a change and updated, and now it also rewrote the Excel spreadsheet. So now that there are now 5 Dwaynes, for example. So this is something you could use, especially if you have more different types of families. You could use something like this for analytics to figure out which families you don't need to have loaded in your project, for example. Okay. So that was supposed to be the easy one. So I'm gonna have to go a little faster, or like maybe just pick out some interesting things from these other guys. The second one I wanted to show was something about furniture and rooms, and I'll use this simpler project to show that. So in this guy, there's some furniture in the kitchen here. There's some bar stools and there's some couches and things over here. So I'll just talk about. I'll start with sort of a seed for a script here and finish it, and then I'll sort of talk about what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So to rooms and furniture. Hungry. So I forgot to save a version of this file that it was partially completed, so I'm just going to show you the whole thing here. But that'll talk about, there's actually a problem in this file, and I want to talk about how to look at fixing that. The logic is something along the lines of, first we want to figure out where all the rooms are. And then we also want to figure out where all the furniture is. So we can select a category, furniture and rooms, and then figure out where they are. One thing I'll start with the rooms, just to visualize what's going on. Once you have all these things, so here are room elements, we can get information about them using Dynamo too. So one thing we can do is, in this background preview here, we can get the geometry from those rooms here. So if I were to preview this is basically this solid geometry. And this has a bit of a complex list structure there. So this is just getting rid of that list structure, and then finally looking at the edges, and then getting the curves basically from those edges. So this doesn't really do anything. The logic from this doesn't go anywhere else. This is just to really help us visualize what's going on here. So that's where you see the sort of the purple lines right there. Separately, we'll use some of that information. In fact, we'll use the bounding box for the rooms here. Separately, we can look at all the different furniture items, and you can either get the geometry of the items themselves, which is a little heavy because you have these rounded things, but you can actually just visualize the bounding boxes too, and also kind of see where they are. The problem that exists in this file that I'll get into is the fact that if you look sort of under here, some of these bounding boxes are not in the room, and that's because the room is sort of misdefined in the sample project that ships with Revit. Haha. So we can figure that out. So the next thing, I'll just sort of get rid of this background just so we can sort of see what's going on here. We can look at this bounding box, and then we can look at this other bounding box, and then we can actually ask if these things intersect. So I'm going to get, basically, do these things hit each other at all? So this is going through, this is a bunch of different lists, and you see this false, 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 true, true, false, like that kind of thing. And for this particular bounding box from this piece of furniture, of all of the 14 rooms that are available, 0 through 13, which ones does it intersect? And there's one true. So whatever room is at index number 11 is where that piece of furniture lies. So that's most of the way. So basically what we want to do is we have these, we have these bounding boxes right here for the rooms. And we have this true false. And we basically want to filter the list for each of these different things. I'll do it for one. I'll just make a we'll do list.filter. It's called filter by a Boolean mask. And I'll just take one of these just as an example, just to kind of show what's going on. Oops, sorry. Just to take the first item. Can't do anything right today. 0. This is going to strip off the first thing, and using this syntax to get the 0th item, which is of course always the first. And so this first item is actually just going to be this list here. So basically what this is, these falses and trues, this is the answer for the first piece of furniture. And this is whether or not it's in each of these rooms. And so you can look at, this is the mask we want to filter by, and then this is the list of rooms we had way back here. So we can do this, and then we can figure out, we can take that whole list, which is also, I should point out, is of course 14 items long. But these are the rooms themselves. So what I'm comparing is I'm trying to find which of these rooms in this list corresponds to true. So you're filtering all this out, and then you can look at, you can see you get one room. That's the answer for that particular piece of furniture. To do this all for them all at the same time, then we're looking at doing just a list.map, basically, taking the same thing here, but applying it to multiple things, kind of like what I was doing before. So same thing here. And what I want to do is basically edit the name parameter. Actually, not that name parameter. Name. I don't want name.
Yeah, because the room name is called name.
Oh, thank you. That's right. Thank you. That's right. Okay, so this is what I was doing. Appreciate it. Instead of getting the room element itself, I wanted to get the room name. So I forgot what I was doing, but that's what I meant to do. Because I don't want to know the element as much as I want to know the name of the room. And you can see that here they are, like master bedroom. I can tell you that we should expect to find things in the kitchen and dining, and I think also in the living room. And so this is what I get as a result. So basically, there's some problems, actually. Oh, no, they're not problems. This is just the this is the list of all of the pieces of furniture in order where they should be found. And we can write that in. The problem, however, that I brought up before is that some of these things are not going to quite work out well because you see that these pieces of furniture are outside of the room bounding box. So if you actually pick out one of these guys, it should not have worked. So if I use, find this guy, Commons Kitchen Dining. So that must be, so this is clearly not right. Something's wrong with our data here. But I'm just going to show you how to fix it.
I think it's your sample model. I don't know where you got that.
Right, it is the sample model. So what I'll do to fix it is I'm just going to look and I'll show you how to fix the room because we're actually looking at the volume of the room itself. And so we can look at a building section and see that the room does not include the furniture. This guy. So I can fix that here. Come on, magic tab key. There we go. So you can see this furniture is below it. So if I fix this like this, Dynamo will notice that there's a difference. See, it's processing right now, and I should now have that fixed. So this is actually now says it's in the living room because everything really works out correctly now. So the end result of that Dynamo file, you can see these things correctly in their room. You can see that bounding boxes are updated, and then in this guy we have the list of the list of pieces of furniture with their comments value properly updated. So we can find this guy, and this stool now should be in the kitchen and dining.
So does Dynamo write back to the comments
Yep.
column? That's what it's reading. Okay.
Exactly, and so and you can choose where you. So the point of this
Put
is
another parameter in and
Mhm.
choose that. Okay.
And you could also make up a parameter too that you know, if you want it to be able to be schedulable, of course, it has to be, you know, belong to the category of your shared parameter. But if you you can choose basically what to read and what to write. So the things, again, it's a little confusing in the background here. So the nice thing is we read the name of the room in this case, and then we took that information and wrote it to the comment section of the different furniture elements. Okay, and point number 3. Oh, I want to talk the renumber rooms thing. I'm getting a little tight on time, so if it's okay, I'll just sort of show you the finished version.
Sure.
Okay. So let's look at this guy. So in here, this is a pretty good section to pick out. You can see there's like room 119, 118, 117, 116 type thing. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to open Dynamo from this file. So I'm going to associate it with this particular project. And I'm just going to open the finished version of this. So the algorithm is to basically select a bunch of rooms in the project, and we're going to find this model curve. And we're going to find where this model curve intersects things. So the first thing, some of these things should look familiar. In fact, if we visualize this, if we turn on the preview for the rooms, we can select all the rooms in the project. It just selects all the rooms. I didn't have to pick anything. And then we want to draw a model curve, and I'm sort of on the first floor down in this corner, so we'll see that show up down here. Before I really do this, Dynamo is running automatically, so I'd like to be able to show you what I'm doing before Dynamo does its thing. So I'm just going to draw this guy, and I'll start with, say, you know, I'll do that same sort of arc. So I'll start up here, maybe move down here, and then press escape. So basically, what I'd like to do is have Dynamo start from the beginning of this curve and end over there. What I'll do is use the select model element. So I'm going to basically click this button, click on that guy. There we go. And I should see the curve element down here, so I can kind of pick it out down here. So the next job is really to have Dynamo find out which rooms this curve is intersecting. So I like to have this do everything, but let's have it not actually write things yet. Okay. So what this will do is it'll find out which curves these things are intersecting, and you can see this little now there's little points that showed up. So my algorithm was to take the intersected. Basically, I'm going to take these rooms and find the intersection between that curve and the rooms, which is going to be like a piece of the curve. So for each of these curves, I've broken this curve up into little pieces, and then among these pieces in a row here, I'm going to just find the midpoint of the piece, so that I know for sure that's not on the room edge. You know, I know it's in the middle of the room. And then now I can use, basically find which room this particular piece is associated with when they're ordered along the parameters from the 0 part of the curve to the parameter 1. So once I have that, this is actually the series of rooms, very similar to the logic we were using before to pick things out. Instead of pieces of furniture, we're using the points instead to find which room they belong in. And then we can use, okay, how many pieces of the curve are there? And we should find 4. And we can start numbering anywhere we want, as long as we're not overlapping something else that Revit already has. Let's start at 2, just to be different. And then I'm making a series from 2 to whatever that number is, so 2, 3, 4. That doesn't make sense.
Did you just have 4?
Oh, actually, here. My logic was wrong. So actually what this should be is start at 2 and go number of things increasing by 1. Okay, I apologize, my logic was wrong, so I just fixed it. Okay, so there we have we want 4 things starting at 2, going to however many that goes up by 1. And we turn that basically into a string so that Revit likes it. And if as soon as I connect this, then since rooms are elements themselves and they have parameters, we can take that information and write it to the rooms there. So we should, as soon as we're done thinking, yay! So 2, 3, 4, 5. Type that. So you could actually take this and reuse it potentially. Other ways to buy it, I can give you this file too. Other ways to really improve something like this would be to maybe account for some user error. I didn't really account in the logic that I was showing you for the room, the curve going in and out of a room, for example, or maybe hitting a hallway that it didn't want to renumber. You can sort of make up how you'd like to basically have this script work.
So you could filter out room names because
Yeah.
you can combine the 2 things you've shown.
That's right. As long as you can describe what you want, you can do it. So if you have two of the same room in order, you don't want to renumber the same room twice. So you could get rid of only filter out unique values or something like that. In fact, unique items I think is the name of the node. And so I'll sort of finish with a little sort of simpler task here. In this same, let me go back to the other one.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you pick midpoint of line so you make sure that it falls on the room? But isn't it, you actually have to pick the point that you clicked on because you can visually see where you're clicking?
Where I'm clicking? Sorry, could you?
Because why
when you
are you
made the
picking
curve.
midpoint? Because you have no control where the midpoint becomes.
I know. So I know what I did was when I broke that curve up into 4 different pieces, it was actually I wanted to make sure that actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I knew it needed to have a point at all. I may have just used the curve itself. But I wanted to make sure that I understood exactly where that point was. And if I used, say, the start point of that piece of the curve, if the wall, if there was a room divider or something like that that had no thickness, then there'd be some risk that I could pick the room next to it instead of the room that was in. So that's why I used the midpoint.
Actually, you can do what you meant because I crashed into that script by William, and it's a kind of brute force method because it split the spline into a certain amount of pieces of segment, and so it's quite consuming in terms of time and memory it can take,
Oh yeah.
So you can use the control point of the spline, and then you can achieve what she was looking for.
It's probably quicker because it's by the point.
Yeah, so it would be like a video game, you just click into the room, and that could be also useful because you can run into a problem using that method, which is if you want to skip a room, which is in between two rooms, you can't.
Right.
For instance, sometimes you want to renumber the core with a different starting number,
Sure.
and rooms around with another number, you can't do with this method. But if you use the control point of the spline, you can.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah.
I
So
know because I modified the script accordingly to our needs. And
So I wonder if that actually starts to point to something that'd be nice for us to do as a group. Like one thing is, you have files, I had some files last time. As a group, do we have a way of like on our website just sort of posting all these links so people can go to any session and kind of just download them as opposed to bombarding with email? And then I'd love to sort of say, hey, you have a modified script. Could we post that next to it so we could say, oh great, there's 2 different alternatives? Because it's all about kind of collecting these things.
Like your own kind of GitHub resource.
Yeah. Just a way that, we can kind of keep on, for people who keep on participating in this, get to the stuff pretty quickly. Because I know, I won't remember to send you an email asking for it, but I do want the file.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That sounds like we should definitely set that up for sure.
Yeah, because a lot of times having a starting point and then adding onto it is very helpful. So,
Right.
And just modifying whatever, and then if you figure something out like that, that would be really helpful.
And then as you figure it out, please, throw it in there, because, you're on it. It really, that does seem like a much nicer method for doing it.
Every time we splice the DNA, we find out what we're creating.
Everything comes from your needs. So
Exactly.
you take someone else's work and you adapt to your needs.
I'm gonna check all these sheets off right now. So this is all these were basically approved by SM, and since this is just set parameter. There you go. Set parameter by name. You can take all these different sheets. Take the checked by parameter, and I'm gonna do it myself. CN. There we go. I've now checked all the different sheets.
Wow.
Nice.
I know how long that takes manually, so.
Yeah, so, and that wasn't necessary. So we can do, how many nodes is this? So those are the elements, and we can actually combine these. So we can say 4 nodes. So.
Yeah, I like that one.
Thanks. Cool. All right. So I think that's it for just the Revit stuff. Adam, if you're ready, if there are any more questions too, and then while Adam's setting up.
I'm ready.
Great. Adam, all you need to do is on the WebEx screen, just click share your desktop, and we'll see what you show.
Hopefully the lag's not too bad, because the screen was definitely pretty jittery on my end, so I'm hoping that it won't be as bad on the way back. So let's see how we go.
We can let you know if it's jittery. I don't know if that'll help anything, but.
Well, I've hit the share my desktop button and it's still waiting. There we go.
Great. We see your screen.
Alright, cool. Alright, guys. Good evening, I think, over there. So basically what I'm going to cover in the next sort of, 50 minutes? Correct?
Yes.
How long? Yep, cool. And just stop me if there's questions. I'm happy to answer things. It's just an overview of DynaWorks, which is the Dynamo library for Navisworks. So I built this library because we were having we had a big job with a lot of clash issues, and we wanted to push a lot of that back into Revit. We had a lot of Revit users with no Navisworks experience. And so rather than trying to get them all up and running really quickly, I just thought this would be easier to build, and it ended up working out pretty good, and we started extending it from there and then releasing it to everyone else. So basically this just can automate a number of different things that you can normally do with Navisworks. So basically you can do that processing at a more complicated level with, say, clash detection. We can, bring the clashes back into Revit, color code our walls if they're clashing, and that sort of thing. So this is available from the package manager. Hopefully everyone knows how to search for a package. If not, up to packages, wait for it to sync with server, type in DynaWorks. There's 2 versions at the moment for Navisworks 15 and Navisworks 16. Unfortunately, the way the coding on the back end is versioned, you can't have a single version for all of them without some real trickery, so it's just split by year. If you do need 2014 Navisworks, there is a copy of that available on GitHub as well, but it's not supported through the package manager. So there's 4 main elements that we're going to cover. So we're going to start off with the file settings. So clash detection contains all our clash detection routines. Heading down from that, our file settings. So this is things like open files, append, publish, save. Publish is quite a new feature that wasn't available. I think I put that in maybe last month or the month before. Same with save file and this new one, stay open file, which will make sense how it works. Objects, so getting, object data, Navisworks attributes, scrolling through the project itself. And then lastly, all the views. So if you've created views in Navisworks and you want to bring them back into Revit, you can pull all those back as well. One thing I'd probably point out now with DynaWorks is DynaWorks can run independently of Revit. So at the moment I've got Revit here, but you'll notice that hopefully you can see that DynaWorks is actually its own separate icon here. So you don't need to use the Revit add-on version in order to run DynaWorks. It runs completely dependent. So I'm going to do something pretty simple here. Just start off with opening a file. So file has 3 options. We've got 2 options. We've got the file path, which is where we go get our Navisworks file, and then we have this visible, which is quite a cool feature with the API. So I might just grab this one at the moment. So one of the things that you can do with the Navisworks API is you can actually run Navisworks without the GUI, which saves you a ton of RAM. So say if you've got a really large model and you need to clash detection, you can use DynaWorks to run it without the overhead of the UI being displayed. So it'll rerun the clashes, remove some of the clashes and things like that. So I'll leave it visible for now, but if you set that to false, Navisworks will actually run just purely in the background. You won't see the interface, and it'll shut down once it's done. So starting off with something simple like that, I'll just hit run. From my experience, it's preferable if you have a standalone version rather than the network license. Obviously, you can get away with the network if you do or don't have it, but I found it a lot easier to deal with without, especially if you're doing large batch processing. So if you're working through 50 NWFs that have all got to have the clashes updated and everything else, if you can get yourself a standalone version on a computer to run off, it's going to be a lot easier without the warnings. So there's my initial files. So appending files is pretty easy. We just connect the open Navis link file. We add another file path. We go and select one of the other models. So let's go get, say, the architecture. Boom. And again, we run that, and it adds the architecture to there. What is quite nice about this too is the two are actually disconnected. So again, one of the big differences here between DynaWorks and Revit is I can actually just kill DynaWorks. Oh, no, I can't. I lied. Why didn't that stay open? Oh, I know why. I didn't use the stay open command. Anyway, so you can actually kill DynaWorks if you want, and it will stay open. Now, the way you use that is you've got to use the stay open file. So it's basically the same, but in this case, if I was just to open the same file again, yeah, okay, open the file up. That should open in a second, hopefully. This. Maybe not. There we go. And so if I was to kill DynaWorks in this instance, you can see Navisworks will step in at the file. So if you've got Dynamo doing a bunch of things up to a certain point, say running pre-processed clashes, doing a few other things, and then you need to take control of it afterwards, you can do that no problems, and then this version of Navisworks will decouple itself from the DynaWorks algorithms that you develop in the first place. So that's the difference between those two. So I'll just fire up, and I'll try not to shut down that again. So a couple of other minor options available here that are pretty important. Publish is quite new. Hang on, we'll set this up again, and then I won't shut this down again. Alright, there we go. So we can quickly append a few of these files. There we go. Connect that to there. And then let's just grab the design intent and the structure. Okay, so this will obviously append all these files as it runs through, and then we can do things like publish the file. So publish brings across all the items that you're probably familiar with Navisworks. So you can see here in this case we've got file name, all the titles, all the presets. So again, if I run this at the moment, we'll run this. That should be right. Awesome, now it's breaking on me all the time. See. Let me just quickly check if I've got any. Sometimes what you'll get is you'll end up with, especially if you're running Navisworks in silent mode, you end up with a few hidden ones in the background here, and you need to kill those off, but obviously that's not the case at the moment. So let's just try this one more time.
Should be the file path.
Okay.
It's a file.
Wait, another file.
Yeah, it's file should go to file path and the booleans.
Sorry, what was that?
Like, should file path go to the file path and open Navis file?
Ah,
and go to the prior one?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'm using a pen file. You think you'd know your own software when you wrote it, but that's not true.
It just makes us feel better when we see someone else do it, that's all.
There we go. That's a bit easier. I was worried then because I've never seen that error before. I'm like, oh, this isn't going well. So again, that'll add those files that you can see there, and we can come across here and export. Now, one of the things that we've got to be mindful with the export here is all of these items actually have to be filled in order for it to work. Now, when I say filled in, like we can have empty strings and things like that. So if I just come in and put a string, for instance, obviously we do need a file name. But author and publisher, copyright, publish for, comments. Obviously, if you had this, one of the things that people do a lot is you'll end up having an Excel spreadsheet that controls a lot of this information. So if you need to publish 50 files and passworded for 50 different users and all that sort of thing, you can set up a spreadsheet, read the results into here, read into that, and then when you're handing those out to various contractors and those sort of things, each one will have their own customized passwords, and if such a thing is needed as well. So it just helps automate a lot of the tedious sort of work. Publish file. Oops, and I can't spell. MWD. Cool. And then again down here with the booleans. So if you want require password, resave, display on open. Again, for those who hopefully are familiar with all of these items, and expire. I don't think I need an expiry. Yes. For expiry date, if you do put expiry dates, I've just done a simple string that goes by year, month, day. So all you have to do is do a string, 2015, 5th, and 14 or whatnot, and it should translate correctly. I haven't had anyone complain about it yet, but that just might be because no one's used it. So if you do have problems, let me know. So that should be fine. So again, just to reiterate, those parameters are all coming from this published file here in Navisworks. So that's all we're controlling in this case. So with that set, I should be able to run that again. Have a think. And there's our new published NWD file, and actually the file, and so we can go and open that file as well instead. And there we go, there's the published file. So again, if you're bulk publishing, if you need to re-add a bunch of things and do these over and over again, this is going to save you a lot of time with doing multiple files. So there's the publish routines there. So what I'll do is, there's nothing really much else. The other one I talked about, the stay open file, we'll just make a quick comment. At the moment, if you use open file and you use it inside a custom node, when the script finishes running at the end of that, Navisworks will automatically shut down. So if you're planning to use any of these routines in your own custom nodes, make sure you use the stay open file, especially if you're embedding this node here into that file, because it'll just close it down at the end. So if you've got 3 or 4 custom nodes that you're trying to string together, you really need to either have this separate or use the stay open file option. So either have this node then feed into your custom node is preferable if you want it still to shut down at the end, or you can just use the stay open file which will just keep it open, and you can put those directly into custom nodes with no issues as well. So, all right, so with that all said, I'll jump across. I might just disconnect this and move it over here just in case I need it again for whatever reason. And what I'll do instead is we'll start looking at some of the clashing options, unless there's any questions with that area there to begin with.
No, we're good.
Excellent. Cool. So if I get into clashes, there's a couple of key ones I wanted to point out first. Is the clear clash results, and then 2 down the bottom, which is remove results and run all tests. These should really be separated, but they're not at the moment. These 3 are, I guess, action items. So if you run your file in here, it will automatically rerun all your clashes again, and then you can start working on the latest version with the updated clashes. So you could append all your files, then run on your tests. Same with resolve clashes. If you run this, it will remove all the resolve clashes, and if you need to clear and then rerun the clash results again from scratch, again, each of those will automatically do those things. So if we had all this first, all this appending, and instead of having file paths, you could have find the latest file based on the date and use a search string, something like that. And then once you get to this point, you rerun all the clashes, then publish the file. There's some of the things you can do there. And in the older version, I only updated this, I think, last week. Yeah, you only had access to clash detection, so you couldn't actually publish the file. So I got a request from someone. And so if you do send me requests, I do try and see if I can do them. Not all the time, but I do see if I can help. So in this case, someone sent that they needed to publish, so I was able to just add in those as well, so you could then link that to the publisher. So there's a whole ton of stuff here, and I'll only go into a few things. So let's first get the clash detection. So I'm going to swap to my updated file here and just run that. And we'll just have a quick look at the file. No, it's still the published MWD. There it is. Cool. So this is just the entire model, all 3 all grouped together. And then if we have a look at the clash, I've just got a single clash, Arc versus MEP. There's 243 clashes that are active and that need to be resolved just on the first floor. So that's all I'm looking for at the moment is these clash items here. The bigger the file, you definitely don't want to keep using visible, especially when you get, you know, in excess of 10,000 clashes. It really starts to chug along. So so the first thing we do is we connect it to the clash detective itself. And there you go. You should get a little update that it's connected there fine. And then from there, we can start getting the clash tests. So in this case, all we've actually grabbed is basically this entire UI, I guess if you want to think about it that way, is the entire clash detective with all the clash tests then listed underneath. So if we then go in and we get the clash detection and run that against the tests, there's our test there, the Arc versus MEP. Obviously with these lists, you can then filter through all these lists and extract certain clashes and put them certain ways and things like that as well. So, and then from there, it's just like a normal Navisworks. So get clash results. We get the clash tests. We put it into the results. And once it finishes running, there we go. As I said, these will obviously start to chug. So when you get in excess of 10,000 odd clashes, it's not going to take a couple of seconds, and you definitely want to keep the user interface set to false because it will take quite a while. So there's all the clashes listed currently at the moment. Okay, so once we've got the clash results, I guess it's slightly confusing if you use Dynamo as well, but in Navisworks, all the objects in the hierarchies are generally called nodes. So if we go through our selection tree, each of these is actually a node level. So that's a node level with certain properties attached to it. That's a node level. So in Navisworks, when you want to go and get, say, a particular object, you're actually using a search path to go and track down a node item. So hence the name node. I didn't want to create a new terminology because the node is what they use heavily in the Navisworks documentation. So just as a result, nodes in this instance refers to Navisworks objects, not Dynamo information. So, and you can see here in our results, again, we've got another bool. And so obviously a clash requires two items to tango. So if you want the first item, you set it to true. If you want the second item, set it to false. And I might, just for simplicity's sake at the moment, just take 15 items. There we go. That should be hopefully a little bit faster. Okay, why isn't it taking everything? Because it's a list within a list, that's why. I'll just leave that for the moment, actually. And a couple of things that we haven't done that you can do is query specific clashes. So if you're after, hopefully you can see there the statuses. So if you've got active clashes, if you've got resolved clashes, you can group all those apart and then do various things with each of those. So we could ignore everything but say the new clashes or the active clashes and then run that through here as well. So once we get the clash nodes, we need to then go and search for those items, which, oops, got a bit of a brain freeze right now. Hopefully that'll fix in a second. Come on, Dynamo. That's running again, that's why. So we'll just have to give it a minute. So yeah, again, I'll probably shut down the UI after this, just because it tends to get, there we go, a little bit faster, there we go. So now you can see all our clash nodes. So each of you can see it actually grabs all the layers from every item upwards. So we actually get the geometry, that we know it's part of the interior walls, we know the type, and then the family and the category. So it actually grabs all those individual elements. And so you can back scroll through. So for each clashing element, you can see down to the lowest level all the information that's available in those. So, and there's a bunch of things we can do with clashing as well. So if we, instead of just getting, say, the clash nodes, if we didn't want the Navisworks property data, say we wanted some other options, we can get all that from here as well. So I've actually split this list into two items. It's a little bit subtle, but say if you want the clash point, which is the 3D item, the 3D collision point calculated in Navisworks, and again, this is probably going to run a bit slow. I might start turning the visibility off in a minute. There we go. Again, for all those clashes, there's all the X, Y, and Z locations. We could do the same thing from bounding boxes, so if you prefer to use bounding boxes, camera eye points and all that sort of thing. So you've got access to grabbing the individual metadata around the clash as well as the information relating to the clashing object as well. The M is for metric. For those unaware, this was actually brought up by someone, and I didn't realize I hadn't been particularly not subtle about it. But if you're using metric Revit and using metric system, you can just use those. Otherwise, you just use the standard get clash point, get the direction point and the eye direction and all that sort of thing. So, and the reason I've broken them down individually like that is so that you can then feed that information back into Revit if you wanted to create individual bounding box views and custom view perspective views of each of the clashes. So that's why all that's available. So rather than dealing with the items, if you didn't want to deal with those, you could deal with the clash elements themselves. So from this point where we've got all this data, we can then start to scroll through and access the individual properties of that information. So I'll just show you pretty quickly how you can go and get the Revit IDs. So once we've got the clash nodes, we can start to get the objects, and that's where we go down to our object information here, and we can get various information about the individual node items. So in this case, this particular wall, we might want to access the properties of that wall and filter. In the scenario I'm about to do is focusing on the element ID, so how we go and get that information. So if I go and get the nodes by class name, so remember we've just got the clash nodes now we need to go get the names of the nodes. So there we go. And you can use either user list name or class name. Now the difference between these two is the username is I've written in this description here. So if we have a look, this LC Revit Composite is the class name, which is a built-in coding name that Navisworks has assigned an item. The username is the other side, the walls.basicWall interior, and then the type name from there. So the difference here is if you want to filter by very specific, if you just wanted all the basic walls interior, you could use these user default class names, which are the human readable ones that you see when you go through your model breakdown. We have a look at walls, and that's when we get these names here. That's the class name, or the username, sorry. The class name is the inbuilt Revit one. So the big difference why you'd use one over the other is, in this case here, if we were to use the user class name to try and select items, we'd have to write down every instance name one by one and track them all down. So you'd have to find out all the interior walls and feed those in, and one after the other, which isn't very useful. However, on the other side, it's a much more generic name, LC Revit Composite. In Navisworks, basically, this is the name that means get all Revit element instances is the easiest way to think about it. So if I go and do something like that, oops, sorry, I thought that was in a string. Composite, there we go. And then tie that into the class name I'm looking for, then feed my node list into that. And run that again. Hopefully it goes a little bit faster this time. Cool. So while that's syncing, there we go. So there's all my individual wall types and floor types and everything that clash as the instance elements. So LC Revit Composite, when you're dealing with DynaWorks, is a really valuable one to know. So definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at instances. When you come back here, you see it gets a little more complicated. So for LC Revit Collection, that actually groups categories, families, and types all into one. So if you were to use that, but you're only looking at category, you might need to be more specific in order to get those items. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly flatten this list and then use another property here. Whoops, which is get Navis attributes. So the Navis attributes, where's my nodes list? There we go. The Navis attributes is the properties in Navisworks. So this is when we're trying to move from, where are we? Yep, properties. Trying to go from selecting an individual object to starting to access all this data here. Okay, so that's when you move from a node to an attribute. And an attribute's obviously, well, made of 3 items. So you've got the sort of the tab header, so item, and then you've got the property name, and then you've got the property value. So whenever you're looking for something, you don't just look for name, you look for item, then you look for name, you look for material or Revit material, and then the color or whatever. So it requires the 3 properties to work together. So again, if I just build that together, so that's going to convert them into accessing the properties, and then the last thing we need to do is to get the values. So if I go into properties list, okay, and we can get the properties. So we can use the class string name or the user string name. So in this case, I'm going to use the user string name. And so we just need to connect these up. So connect my attributes list. One thing that you have to do when you're trying to get access properties is you have to actually connect the Navis file back to here. And the reason because this is because in Navisworks, the way it's designed, is when you actually search for properties, you don't use the nodes so much to search for properties. You run a completely new search with the attributes. So what I'm doing here is actually getting the list of attributes and then running the search again. So the nodes and the properties aren't directly connected the way that I guess we would think it's connected, say, like in Revit, where you can search an ID and then just access everything. You can't really do those sort of things. So I'm just going to go for the element IDs. So connect that up, and then we get the property name. So just confirming that we've got under element ID, we've got value, and then here's the value we're trying to retrieve. So I'll just run that. And hopefully at the end of it, it's still running. One thing that always happens with this node here is you'll always get error warnings. It pops up and says there's a warning. There's nothing wrong with it. Just ignore the warning. It's one of those dodgy things that I haven't had time to resolve yet, unfortunately. So generally this thing will highlight in yellow and say, oh, I've got issues, but just be aware there's no problems with it. It just seems like there are.
It's just high maintenance.
So yes, yeah, and I'm don't get the time that I'd like to keep working on these things. So you sort of get a backlog of issues, and then I think it was like 10 or 12 months until I properly did an update on the tool itself. So again, this is running a tad slow. So again, as I was saying before, if you set this to false when you start running this, you'll see probably a speed up time of in the realm of 70 to 80% in terms of the calculation time when you're running it without the overhead of the user interface. So once that's finished, and we'll just keep letting it run. So the other thing I was just going to quickly, there we go, it's finished. Hey, cool, no errors. So you can see here we've then got the list of element IDs. There's a couple of voids, and we can interrogate those later. Generally, it's just because when it's gone through LC Composite, it's grabbed something that's not a direct attribute, and you can get quite pedantic how much you need to filter through all this information. So, but generally, all the items you get from here are fine. So from this point, with our list of element IDs, we would then, if we wanted to interact with Revit, obviously we'd have to open up Revit, fire up Dynamo with there, feed the element IDs to the elements, and then we can start to, apply maybe clashes or something like that. And I'll do an example. This array is taking a bit longer to open than I thought. So there was only a couple of other quick little things I wanted to show you with this, and then I'll pop open the Revit file and do a really quick example of moving element IDs across once this is done, if it gets done. So bear with it. And if it's going to take too long, I'll fire up another Dynamo. Oh no, it won't let me run. I shouldn't have clicked on that little button. Alright, let's see if we can get the other one working in the thread here. So this is the same file. This is all the architectural elements. Excuse me. Let me just check that I've got the project parameter I needed in here.
So by the way, for those of you who don't know, maybe everybody does know, and I'm the only one who didn't, but that's the Autodesk office in Boston.
Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only data set I know I can use legally whenever I'm showing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
So.
the other funny thing I didn't know, because I spent 2 months in that office like 2 years ago, and they always refer to that one parking lot on the side as the green parking lot, and I could never figure out why, because it's not green, and it must be because it's green in the model.
Oh.
That's great.
All right, so I'll try and quickly show you this coming across the Revit. But as I said, I just wanted to show you a couple of other things really fast. So first off, yeah, you could go through here and start to query all your items. So again, this is getting the attributes, and then it'll go and find the particular ID. So the ID here is the username for element ID. So these are all your tabs back in Revit. Hopefully that makes sense. So your material tab, your element ID tab, all those sort of things. So it's basically getting the element ID, which is that value there, to then extract the value for the element IDs. So a couple of other really helpful little things. First off, there's a little tool here which I added in, which is, there's two functions to it. One is get object names and get object values. So this is really handy when you're trying to get just random metadata from any element. So if I go ahead to go to my clash test here, run the results, and I just might, for the moment, I might disconnect that because it's using a fair bit of time. So let's just run that out quickly. There we go. So this actually lists all the items and all the data around those items. So if you see here, I got paths and point 1 and point 2 and approved by and the name, object names and all this sort of thing. So these are all the property values. Some of them you don't need, you know, process thread locks and things like that, but you might want the path and approved by and the approved time and the viewpoint and those sort of things. And so what you can then do is, once you know the name of the item you're looking for, we can go ahead and just go. So in this case, connect that to the object name there, and just call this name. Run that, and it's going to provide you all the clash header names. And so, as you can see, it all comes in generally randomly too. So it's best to use something like this. So when they come across, you could then feed these values back into Revit or something like that to get those clash names. So this can be really tied to any object. So if you're looking just for various values from any item, the get object names and then get object values are really handy for querying, you know, the class attributes lists and things like that. So and the very last one that I wanted to cover was this one here, which is quite useful for getting objects that aren't maybe Revit specific. So example of this is I was working on a project, and the piping had all been done in Bentley, and we needed to access all the pipe lengths and all that sort of thing. And so what we're able to do with this is use Navisworks and the Navisworks model. So this will go through and get the individual files, and then you just keep using this get child mode. And I might just go get the first one of each list, first item, because it'll simplify the list a little bit, so we're not grabbing so much data again. So run that, and so what it'll do is it'll start slowly jumping down the hierarchy of the elements and grab them one at a time. So if we wanted to then get level 1, we could go get level 1, and we just use this children's node again. There we go, and I'll just connect that there. So, but eventually you'll get down to the individual instances of each of these elements, and hopefully this sort of makes sense. But in this case, what you're able to do obviously is, say for the Bentley model, we were able to completely pull apart the Bentley model, extract all the pipes, and then use like what Colin was showing earlier, exporting it to Excel, so we could track all that information too. So the real benefit of using these pretty simple get children nodes back and forward is if you're working with any external files, Tekla files or anything like that, and you want to pull, you know, column numbers and merge them again with Revit, things like that, you can do a lot of that sort of stuff directly through here just by querying the metadata and then pulling it back out too. So pretty simple. All I'm really doing there is navigating this tree structure, and then once I get to a point that I'm happy with, because we're still dealing with nodes, we then use the same element as here. We convert the node, and then we get the attributes. So we just plug all that list of nodes that we want in, and then get the attributes from there. So that's the major part of DynaWorks. So you can see so far we haven't even gotten into Revit yet. So I'll try and really quickly. I'm not sure if I've actually got my element ID converter on this machine, so I'll try and close out this last little bit. Alright, so let's save this file since it's all available in there. Clashes for now. And I'll just shut that down. So come into Revit. I'm just going to add just a project parameter here, on-off switch for, I probably don't need everything actually. I only really need to deal with walls at this stage and just make an instance, yep. So hopefully it makes sense what I'm about to do. So I've just added that project parameter in. So under my list here now, I've now got this tick box for clashes. And so what I could do is using Dynamo within Revit. And while that's firing up, is there any questions? I know I'm starting to get close on time. Or no? Great.
No.
All right. So I'll just pull this down. Go and load that file up from my desktop. Cool. Clear all the mess I just made. Probably need it again, but it's alright. So we'll connect that. Run that through. So at this point here, we managed to get all the element IDs of the clashes. So from there, we need to start using our Revit element IDs again. So I should still have, come on, ID to element. Where are you? I think that's my one. No, that's not my one. ID to element. No, that's not my one either. Awesome. There's like 5 different types of these, but unfortunately they keep breaking, so I ended up having to write one myself, but I don't think it's in there.
Which is the node again? Exactly the node you're looking for?
All it does is take the string name and then selects the element.
Oh, right.
No, it's nothing very fancy. Oh, hang on. Wait.
I totally understand that. The different packages keep breaking. I totally get it.
There it is. Yeah, so I've just got a little ID to element. Yeah, things get updated and people create new packages and all that. So here we go. So the ID to element, it's pretty simple. This one I think I actually butchered from Conrad because his was broken. Which is just Conrad from Grimshaw that does a lot of the Manta Shrimp stuff. So I didn't have time to bug him. So I just butchered his, which is one of the cool things about Dynamo. If people have done things and they haven't updated it, you can then just butcher their stuff so it gets out the door faster. Probably not a good idea, but you can do it. So using this IDs to elements, so if I select that now, and there we go. I might just quickly do a couple of things first. First, as you probably remember from the string, the list wasn't very flat, so I just need to flatten this list. There we go. And the other problem that you generally will get is, as you probably saw, I had some empty items. So there were some items there that didn't contain any string value. It just had an empty list. So again, you can't filter those through in my routine because it just doesn't allow for that because it's not very good. So you could build routines that could do that, but I just didn't have the time. So all I'm doing at this point is just creating, first flatten the list, get all the unique items, because sometimes you end up, especially with this wall, you might have, in this example, you might have 15 clashes in a single wall. But since we've just got a single tick box for the wall instance, we don't need to go through and tick the thing 15 times. So we can use this unique items just to get rid of those duplicate elements. So I'll just connect my flatten list here, run my unique items into here. So the reason I'm using null is so that the IDs to elements, it doesn't break on me. And I'm just going to use the filter by bool mask, which is like one of my favorite list node routines that was ever invented. So again, this will check anything that's not null and just remove it from the list so we don't get any errors. I can then feed the, I think I need to feed the outputs into the element IDs. And then very last, I'll just set parameter by name, whoops. Set parameter, where was it? Where is it? By, there you are, cool. Alright, and so this will then feed the elements in there. The value I'm looking for is clashes, which is that project property I just created. And the value, again, this is probably more of a Revit thing, but in case you don't know, all on and off tick boxes in Revit are actually 0 and 1 values. They're not bools. So if you feed a bool into there, you'll get an error, but if you feed a 1, that should work. So I'll just set this to false and let this run in the background so it hopefully runs a little bit faster. There we go. Cool. So again, yeah, with the borrowed licenses, you'll get that issue. But once that starts thinking, you should see somewhere in here the Navisworks Roma executable will be running. But yeah, you can see that's already finished. Oh, okay, so a couple of errors. A lot of errors. Which means I didn't connect something back here. What did I put? I need to connect the results up. There we go. Let's run that again. I was about to say that was even faster than I was expecting. So yeah, so you can see my Navisworks is actually running and ticking away. And again, that's updated, so does it all work?
Didn't you say earlier you have
Looks
to
like
rerun the file name into that one node, that one right there?
The file name? Yes, thank you.
To that
Yep, all right. That time's a charm.
You were listening.
You think I would remember these things, but I don't. All right, so we might have got a couple of errors here, but there's all our wall IDs that have been tracked from this point. So you can see there's my flattened list. And again, hopefully you did notice how much faster it took to run all 3 of those without the UI. And with your bigger files, the other thing too is it's such a small footprint. So if you are running, 5-6 gig of Revit files or Navisworks files, and you're doing these things, running them silently is quite really helpful. So there's my wall IDs. Hopefully a few of these would have got through. We can check, and you saw hopefully a few of them were highlighted. So if I do a very quick filter, add new clashes on my walls, clashes equals yes, and we just set the surface pattern here to red with a solid overlay. I'm not sure what that was.
It was music of excitement that your clashes worked.
Yeah, was that a feature?
Yeah. Did you build that in?
So, and there you go, guys. So you can see the items that have got active clashes at the moment. Obviously, with the MEP, you'd be able to run it on the pipes level, and it would highlight all the individual pipes that are having that issue too. So, with that being said, that's a majority. The other option that I didn't show in this case, but you can do, is you can do 3D points instead. So I know we're running short on time, but rather than updating the elements, you could go and get the clash point and then use the place family by item name, and that will actually go and place little clash objects at every single point in your project. So I've just got, in this case, I've just got like a little example dummy flag, and it'll just go and place those if you know how to use the place families by XYZ position. So with that said, there's a ton of other stuff you can do. Exporting, the other thing people I've seen use it for a lot is exporting their clash results back out to Excel, either using like the Bumblebee package or just exporting it out to Excel, so you can very quickly export what you need out and then have various reporting parameters on those sheets already pre-configured. So this will allow you to do very nice formatting rather than exporting, say, a report and then having to hack it all apart to get what you need out of there too. And so with each of the tests, you can filter them to different sheets and things. So there's a number of different avenues you can take with using DynaWorks. So I hope that was a good start and overview. And any questions?
Adam, that was great. This is Brock. I've got one comment. I've never thought of using Navisworks just to find information, but I mean, you've kind of opened my eyes to using this in combination just to kind of query against these giant data sets that take forever trying to use Revit to find stuff, and to your notion of, even if you're dealing with files that are not necessarily Navis files, or Revit files for that matter, being able to use Navisworks to query against them. So being able to query against a different file type that Navisworks can accept, you've kind of opened my eyes to all these other potential ways of working. I was kind of thinking, I don't do a lot of clash detection in my job, but the fact that I would be potentially having to query models using Navisworks with DynaWorks in kind of combination opens a lot of potential opportunities there. So thanks for sharing.
Cool.
Any questions in the room for Adam? I think we're just all impressed. Do you want to add anything?
No, I've got no final. I think we went through every single feature. If you start using it and you need help, just email me, or LinkedIn me is usually easier since I always respond to those. So if you need particular things, just jump in, contact me. Some things I can fix, some things I can't. At the moment, one of the key things I've done is I haven't enabled the ability yet to re-update the Navisworks file at a lower level. So some people, for instance, wanted to custom name all their clashes based on elements and level and that sort of thing to help with those sort of items. So I haven't really done anything like that. Same with like color coding you've used in Navisworks. So I'm considering it, but the main problem is it's just a really big job to do, and I don't want to do it where you've only got 2 or 3 things that you can edit, and then there's things you can't edit, and then suddenly there's all these rules. So really using this is just being able to pull data or clashes or out of Navisworks, of getting latest files, appending the latest files, publishing files and things like that.
Yeah, I'm curious, how many man hours do you think you've saved your team by automating some of these processes across your company?
I've never really calculated, because we do a few things a bit interesting. So a couple of things that we do that we use this for is we'll get like the timeline of properties and run them back into Revit so we can color code for our 2-week look arounds on the construction. Because we share our Revit models, our live Revit models with our site implementation team quite a lot. So it's pretty important for them to have that data to filter out. So before they were just doing that manually. I'd say in some ways that's even bigger. The support that we're doing with our contracting group. than some of the man hours that we've saved in the design office. But for like our teams now, they just run their project once a week, and then it updates all the clashes and then spits out a Revit file that we've got just called the clash file that we then link back into everyone's computers. So everyone just refers to that. And because each of the little clash bubbles has comments in them, you can just add individual comments if you need to, and that can be tracked with scheduling and things like that. So I wouldn't even guess how many hours we've saved with it, but it'd be up in the thousands, I would say, by this time, based on our current project sets.
That's great.
Yeah. I know the Bentley piping job alone, I couldn't even, because that was a detailed line that we were doing, and to manually count all the pipe lengths versus interrogating the model and just spitting them all out in Excel. I don't know how long the QS team would have taken. Probably, I think for a junior or something, probably been about 3 weeks. So,
Wow.
yeah. All right.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank
Adam.
you. Thank you.
So next month, the meeting is actually going to be over lunch. It's going to be on November 11th. And we're going to have another virtual presenter. Do you want to explain a little bit about who our presenter is going to be?
Yeah, so we have another bad monkey next week. Next month is Håvard Vassag from Snøhetta in Oslo. He's been with the Dark Architects until he just moved to Snøhetta about a couple months ago. And Håvard doesn't have a library, I don't think, but he's a fairly prolific user of Dynamo 2 and makes is quite an evangelist, you know, in and of himself, really, and he makes some really beautiful things, and he has some really good tutorials and things like that, and he's done quite a bit of teaching, both within his company and then also just around Northern Europe, even. And he's been really excited to join us. So the reason for the lunchtime meeting is really because it's late at night in Norway by the time we're having lunch. So.
Great. Well, I guess we'll see you guys all next month. Don't forget to RSVP, invite your friends. It'll be the same kind of format. There'll be box lunch kind of thing. So thank you again to our sponsor for the food tonight from IDA. I really appreciate that. We all appreciate the food. And we'll see you guys next month. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll get that.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye, guys.
See
Bye,
ya.
thank you.
Bye.